Hola estudiantes, este es el tema 10.1, el tiempo imperfecto. So the imperfect tense is also to talk about the past, but we are going to use this form to talk about the past in a different way than the preterite. So the preterite form is what in English we would use as I bought, or I did, I completed, I studied. So those are actions that you did in the past. But imperfect is to talk about the past in a way like if you are giving a narration, like if you are narrating something that you used to do in the past. So for example, we have yo compré, I bought, right? So we're talking about a specific action, a specific time that you bought maybe shoes or clothes, or you bought a house. Now, compare this to imperfect tense that you're going to say yo compraba. This is going to be I used to buy. So this is giving you already an idea of something that you used to do several times, that you repeated an action that maybe it was a habit. Okay, so this is different than the preterite form. So for example, in here it says acciones que se repiten en el pasado o hábitos. De niño leía todos los días con mi madre. When I was a kid, I used to read with my mom every day. Descripciones en el pasado de personas, cosas o lugares. You can also use the imperfect to describe things, people, and places in the past. Nuestra antigua casa tenía 2 plantas. Our previous house had 2 floors. As I previously mentioned, we're going to always compare the preterite to the imperfect because sometimes these are used in the same situation but for different purposes. So for example, let's say that you're telling a story, right? The preterite is going to tell the backbone of the story. It's going to talk about the main actions that happen in the story, but you need the imperfect to describe the details of the story. So let's say that you're talking about one day that you were walking on the street and you fell down. You're not going to start your story by just saying, I was walking on the street and I fell down. If you want to narrate this, if you want to embellish your story, you're going to tell your friend, oh, I was walking on the street, I was looking at a car that was passing by, and then I tripped and fell. Usually that's what we do when we tell a story. We don't go ahead and go straight to the point. Sometimes we might, but if we want to provide more details, we usually use the imperfect tense. Now, about the conjugation, we're going to pay attention to see that when we use the imperfect tense in AR forms, it is also the nosotros form that is going to have an accent. But if we're talking about ER and IR verbs, we're going to see that we have accents all the way. So pay attention to that and make sure that you know how to conjugate this. Make sure that you know and that you look at the endings. And as you can see, verbs ending with ER and verbs ending with IR are going to share conjugation. Okay, so you only have to remember one conjugation for those two, and then you're going to remember the conjugation for the verbs ending in AR. Cantar, yo cantaba. I used to sing. So as I said, it's different from yo canté. Yo canté is preterite form. To say I sang, maybe one time. Yo cantaba. It gives me the idea that I used to sing, or that I sang several times, or that this was a habit. So that is the difference between imperfect and preterite. Yo cantaba, yo bebía, yo escribía. I'm going to give you 3 examples. Yo cantaba con mi madre todas las mañanas. I used to sing with my mom every morning. Yo bebía chocolate todas las noches. I used to drink cocoa every night. Yo escribía una carta a mi abuela cada mes. I used to write a letter for my grandma every month. So as I said, this is going to be going along phrases that give me the idea that these were habits. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. Just as a note, the imperfect form of I is había. So, as we mentioned, this imperfect tense is to also describe places. So, this is going to be useful particularly for that. Había muchos árboles. There were a lot of trees. Había mucha gente. There was a lot of people. So that's how you describe a place, by the things that you saw at that place. So I remember that I means there is or there are, and había, there was or there were, or there used to be. Now, in all the conjugations, we usually have irregular forms. In the imperfect tense, we have three forms, three verbs. We have ir, ser, y ver. Yo iba, tú ibas, ella iba, and so on. Yo era, tú eras, usted era, and so on. Or yo veía, tú veías, and so on. They are not going to follow the conjugations that we saw previously with the ending in aba or the ending in ia, like in here. Remember? Aba, ia. We don't have those endings. That's why we're saying that these are irregular conjugations. Now, very important, the uses of the imperfect. Usually people say that the imperfect form is to talk about actions that were not or had not a clear ending. And this expresses what was happening at a certain time or how things used to be, but it doesn't really have a clear ending. So for example, when I say, when I was a child, I don't know if I'm saying, when I was 5, when I was 6, when I was 4, when I was a child. In contrast, the preterite usually talks about a specific time or a specific completed action in the past. As I said, I bought a pair of new shoes last weekend. I can see a clear timeline, and I cannot see a clear timeline with the imperfect. When I was a child, maybe I was 4, maybe I was 5, maybe I was 6. So that's why this is not as clear as pretérito. These expressions are often used with the imperfect because they express habitual or repeated actions. So as I said, our imperfect is usually to talk about habits. So some of the phrases that you're going to hear with this are going to be de niño or de niña, when I was a child, todos los días, every day, especially if you're talking about a specific given time period, or mientras, same thing, while another action is taking place, but to take this as a time frame. And I'm going to give you 3 examples. De niña, jugaba en la playa. When I was a kid, I used to play at the beach. Cuando estaba en París, todos los días visitaba un museo nuevo. When I was in Paris, I used to visit a museum. Every day I used to visit a new museum. Okay, so when I was in Paris, so it's every day, but during a given time period. When I was in Paris. Mientras vivía en Raleigh, yo trabajaba cerca de casa. While another action is taking place, but like a time frame. For example, when I was living in Raleigh, that is my time frame. So it's not when I was living in Greenville or when I was living in Charlotte. It's specifically when I was living in Raleigh. And finally, we have a list in here for more of the situations when we use the imperfect tense, usually, to talk about habitual or repeated actions, events or actions that were in progress in the past. As I said, I was walking down the street and I was looking at a car, or it started raining and then I tripped and fell down. Physical characteristics to describe a person, place, or thing. Mental or emotional states. Quería mucho a su familia. Telling the time, and age. So those are the situations in which we usually use imperfect tense. And as always, if you have some questions about this, please do not hesitate to ask me about the use of the imperfect tense. This is our grammatical point 10.1 for lesson 10.